Hi everyone, welcome to Small World, the podcast where I bring on a wide range of guests, both professional and personal. My name's Eliza, and together we'll learn more about the people around us. Our guest this week is Melbourne-based actor Kelsie Adelaide. You might know Kelsie from the TV and web series Flunk, a critically acclaimed LGBT teen drama series. We chat about lockdowns, pronouns, safety on set, and a heap more. So kick back and enjoy today's episode. It's a small world after all.
So my name is Kelsie Adelaide. I'm an actor predominantly, but I also work in other various parts of the film industry and the theatre industry. And I am originally I'm from Queensland, from the sunny coast, and now I live in Melbourne, where I've been stuck inside for the past 2 years. Being stuck inside for the past 2 years, I haven't been able to do much work recently, but besides things over Zoom and over the internet. I'm just looking forward to getting out of it and then getting back into it.
I was going to ask you about the lockdown, and I wasn't sure when it would come up, but it seems like it's come up straight away.
It's always on the forefront of all of our minds. It's like even you walk down the street on your state-mandated daily walk, and every other person that you pass is talking about it.
Yeah, wow. So obviously I'm in Queensland, for those of you who don't know at the moment, and we've dealt with very minor lockdowns comparatively to Melbourne, and from your experience in the industry as well, because I think the film industry was hit so hard by the lockdown, and what was that like? Just first thing that comes to mind, what was that like throughout the past couple of years going through the lockdowns?
It was mainly just kind of disheartening. Like for the first lockdown, I didn't have that many plans in place. There were a couple of music videos I knew I was working on, but I wasn't sitting there going, oh, there's this huge project that I've invested so much time in that is now cancelled. Initially, it wasn't too big of a deal, but then when it kind of kept going on, and especially with this last lockdown, I did have things that were planned and that just inevitably got scrapped. So it's a really disheartening thing when our industry is already so kind of, it's constantly teetering on the edge of, will it happen? Won't it happen? Sometimes you make the whole thing, you make a whole movie or a whole music video, and it just doesn't ever go anywhere or ever get released. To be kind of forced to sit down and not be able to do anything it really sucked.
Look, I obviously, as a comparison, we went through, our last lockdown we went through was a week long, and I almost lost my mind in that 1 week. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I just got in my studio here, the new office, and I was so excited to finally be able to work from an office because I've been working from home for so long. And it was this massive milestone. And then literally a week later, in my second week at the office, we hit lockdown, and I wasn't allowed to come in because I was too many kilometers away from my house. And and that 1 week, I was like seriously not myself. I wasn't myself. I was, really down. I couldn't motivate myself to do any work, even though I still had like some editing to do. And that was a week. So I honestly, it's not even something that I can comprehend, going through a lockdown of that extended period where not only are you stuck inside, but you're also not really allowed to work.
Yes.
And I think, and no matter what you do, and, it goes across a lot of industries, obviously, but, especially in the industry you're in, not being able to work, you can't be on set, you can't do much at all. Like, that's taking away such a huge, like, it comes back to the whole thing of who decides what essential work is.
Yeah. Even the last release that they did, where there was a typo that they claimed, where they said that entertainment venues could go back, and then they were like, actually, no, you can't. It's very much been an industry that's super duper like important, both financially and culturally, and and it just kind of gets put to the wayside a lot.
Mm.
And like there wasn't really any support for artists who lost jobs and lost their whole livelihoods, and there was no job keeper for us essentially, unless you were working on like an established production company and stuff like that, which a lot of us are not.
Yeah.
So yes, but yeah,
I mean,
even just like a week of it is a lot, but yeah, going through a
no.
lot more of it does.
Yeah, and
I guess you just get into a routine.
yeah, like anything. I mean, you've got to go through. Like, you don't actually have a choice. At the end of the day, you don't have a choice. What are you going to do? Like, you just have to figure out a way around and a way to still be a person in those circumstances. But I mean, Melbourne's gone through. It's been insane. Like, isn't it the worst in the world? Like, it's actually no
Yeah,
joke.
it was
Like,
the longest in the whole world, the longest that any city has been locked down in the whole world. Which is just
that.
like I love breaking records, but
Oh.
it's not quite one I wanted to break.
Not at all. And I mean, I guess this is probably obvious, but how do you think that's affected your career? Like, have you, like, if you're thinking about it, like, you've been put into a standstill. Like, who knows? One thing could have led to another thing, could have led to another thing. And obviously with acting, I mean, there's always, travel, a lot of travel's usually involved too, but, not being able to do anything, that's got to take a huge hit to your portfolio as well.
Oh yeah, it was the trickiest thing was being locked down and being like not getting any auditions at all, because there are none, and then watching all of my mates in Queensland, like putting on their shows and doing films and stuff, and while I was like, oh, like nice, like power to them, it's awesome for them, but I'm also sitting here being like, okay, so how far behind am I
Yeah.
falling, even though that's like not a real thing. You can't really fall behind anybody else. Like it's not a race. But it did feel like I was sitting here going, okay, everyone else is building up these credits and working on these things that I could have been working on if
Yeah.
I had just like moved back home at the very first sign of it. But also you can't know, like hindsight's 2020. But yeah, it does feel like it's just everyone else is just zooming off without you, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll catch up eventually, hopefully.
And it's something that's really tricky as well because it's not your fault. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like it's not your fault, and it almost feels like, you're dramatic, but like falsely imprisoned, if that
Yes.
makes sense. Like, sent to prison for something you didn't do, your rights being taken away in a certain way. Like, for me, I think that's how I would perceive it. And over such a long period of time, for it to stop your career, for you to have no or very little government help, while other industries do as well. I mean, it's got to feel pretty rough.
It does. It's this weird sense where you're like, especially at the beginning, it was, there was such a sense of duty, and it was such a sense of my housemates and we stayed home from whatever it was, the 20th of March or something in 2020, like whatever that first day was, where they were like, hey, we don't know what's happening, but you should probably stay inside your house. We did. Like, there
Yeah.
was no question of, we were like, oh, but we kind of want to go out. It was like, no. We have to pretend that we have COVID and that we are a danger to society, so we're going to stay here. And we felt great doing that for pretty much the whole time. We've always felt like we're doing the right thing, we're doing a good thing, which we are, and we did.
How has it affected your day-to-day life and your connections with your family, your connections with your friends, and like from more of a personal perspective? Have you been through some like, mentally pretty tough moments where you've just been like, where do I go from here?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a psychologist before the pandemic, and now I have one that I see every 2 weeks, for lots of reasons. But yeah, it's in
Yeah.
one way it made, like with family stuff, it made us closer, like immediate family. My brother also lives in Melbourne while my parents are still in Queensland, so we started having weekly, like every Sunday night, we have a video chat,
Yeah.
and that has continued the whole time. And it initially was happening because mum could tell that my brother and I were both very down. It
Yeah.
really there were some very, very dark periods of time, especially last year, where I think there are just months. I think all of September at least, I don't remember. I've got no.
Yeah.
I know that my housemates and I were hanging out a lot, but other than that, I really have no memory of what happened or what we did. Getting up in the morning, who knows? So there's this huge kind of mental strain that becomes comfortable. You kind of become really comfortable being constantly stressed out, and you get into your routines of staying inside the house, and like you just start to pretend that the outside world doesn't actually exist, and that it's just kind of this made up thing that you don't have to experience. So re-entry, as we're doing literally like this week is our re-entry week, is honestly, it feels harder than staying inside. Even though it's more liberating, and it will eventually feel better.
Yeah.
But the start of it is really hard.
Is it sort of a little bit like a sensory overload going out into the world? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have to wear my headphones. And I like, sometimes the sun is too bright. Like I have to wear my sunglasses even inside. It's 100%. It's like a huge, I had to go yesterday. I had to go to my brother's house, and he lives in the middle of the city. And so I had to get on a tram and then walk through the city to get to his apartment block and get up an elevator and stuff. And there are people everywhere. There are trucks, there's people, there's like motorbikes and food delivery and stuff. And it's just, you sit there and you wonder how you were able to navigate it so easily in 2019, that you would just I'd have like 4 activities that I was doing that day. I was seeing 4 different people for meetings or coffees and stuff. And I would just do it. Like, it was so easy. And now I have to just do one thing, and then I need a nap.
Yeah. So, but I think that is it's something that sounds like, if you were to tell yourself, hey, in 2 years' time, you're going to be locked in your house for 2 years, and then you'll come out and you'll be like a little bit overwhelmed with the world. There's, you wouldn't believe it. You'd be like, no, that will never happen. Like, even if there is a pandemic, that'll never happen. And so I think that, like, it's such a shocking outcome, but it also makes so much sense. Like, because I mean, if I get sick or something and I'm at home for a prolonged period of time, and you kind of get, used to your little routine, or not seeing many people, or even when I was working from home as like a sole trader, and not having a lot of interaction with people apart from on shoots. Sometimes when I was on the shoots or going to a meeting, you just get like super anxious, and similar kind of thing. But I think, like with the past week, it's been a week now that you guys have been, is it totally, what's the restrictions like now comparatively?
Currently we're at, I think we just hit, I want to say 70% fully vaxxed, I think. And so currently we're just at, there's still no retail open, and you still wear a mask absolutely everywhere, which I think will continue even beyond when the restriction for that stops. But yeah, I think just currently we can go as far as we want. We can't go into regional Victoria though, and we don't have to have a reason to leave the house. We can just be out for however long we want.
And I suppose to outline what it was like before, so that we can compare the two, what was it like a week ago?
A week ago, we were still, I think we had just gotten 25K, but before that it was, you couldn't go 5 kilometers past essentially where you're living or what's on your license, unless you had an intimate partner or you're a caregiver, and then you can go further. And you had to have, there were 4 reasons for you to leave the house, things like groceries and caregiving, and getting a test as well. That was a reason you could leave. And that was it. And you could exercise. You had 2 hours of exercise per day, or was it 1 hour? I can't remember. But yeah, it was
I didn't realize they restricted the hours that you could exercise. Like, so no 20K walks, anyone? No marathons, please?
Ooh, not at all. You have an hour. I mean, it wasn't very policed. It was kind of that thing where if you went out walking with a friend and you got talking, and next minute it's been like an hour and a half, no one's going to know, and you haven't, you haven't gone into any shops, you haven't interacted with anyone, but you would try and keep it
Yeah.
as small as possible.
Out of the darkness, I suppose, that has been the past couple of years for everyone, to talk about it, like a few more positive things, like how do you think that this has affected the community now that you go out, and do you see like a change in people?
Yeah, there's a big change. I noticed it even the other day. I actually called my mum about it, that it was one of the first times I'd left the house in a long time. And there was just like thing after thing that kept happening of just people's interactions. I actually saw one today where I had to go get a corporate, like a COVID test for work. And on my way back, there was a girl standing at the lights, and she was talking to this. There was an old man talking to her, and I was like, oh, I'll keep an eye on it. But she was quite all right. And as we kind of walked away, she was on the phone, and she's like, oh no, he was so nice, and like he said these nice things, and he didn't need to say that. Like he said, but it wasn't creepy. It was cool. And yeah, there's just like people are so desperate to reconnect with each other. And now that it's starting to feel like you can trust that the person that you're talking to is probably double vaccinated. They are probably following the steps because we've all been doing it for so long. And so people are more eager to connect with each other and talk with strangers, and also just tell their own stories. Like you talk to anyone in the park and you've all got a shared experience. So everyone just is kind of like, yeah, like, I can talk to you like I know you because we've gone through similar things over the past 2 years that has in our lifetimes has never been able to happen. Like everyone has experienced things differently. Whereas this pandemic and being in lockdown, it's like we're all suffering under the same dome, even though inside we're doing different things. So yeah, way more community connection and politeness. Like people obviously keep their distance a lot more, which is fantastic. Honestly, I like that.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like it's probably the new norm now. I mean, I can't imagine if you get sick now, you're just going to automatically go put a mask on. Like it's just going to be second nature. And I think I think that is a cool thing because it might reduce, we might be a little bit more polite around those sort of areas. And I think, great, as many positives that we can pull out of this as possible. Like I'm all for it. So what was the last film project that you worked on? Or what was the biggest one that you've worked on that's been the most fun?
Yeah, so the biggest one I worked on was shooting season 3 of Flunk that I work on, which is like a web series also on TV. So I guess it's like a TV series, and it's set out in Lilydale, and so it's super queer, and it's been going. I was in the first 2 seasons, and it's been going since 2018, and so we were meant to film a whole bunch of things in 2020 that obviously didn't happen. So the producers of it just like knuckled down, and they planned really well, and we ended up doing these huge blocks of shooting in oh gosh, I think it was earlier this year. It must have been.
What is time?
Time isn't real.
Time is a rubber band.
Yes. And so it was a fantastic experience of, because of all of the COVID restrictions and rules around it, especially in our industry, like Screen Australia has a huge kind of document of rules that we need to follow. And we would get picked up and like chauffeured to set where we had like a huge studio, and it felt really, really professional and really cool. And that was just super duper awesome.
And so who's your character in Flunk?
So my character, her name is Danny, and she is I think she's like 19 and thinks she knows everything, but also doesn't know anything, and is very much addicted to like crushes and love and sex and relationships, and that's kind of her role in the whole show, in the kind of cast of characters, as being the person who is, jumping from one bed to the next and having a great time, and then also having a terrible time because we've got to have drama in a TV show. So yeah, she's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And what have you enjoyed about playing her?
I think I've enjoyed for one, the costumes. I got to wear a whole bunch of Dangerfield like
Oh,
stuff. They kind of
love it.
sponsored us or gave us costumes for the last season, and also that she's like, what's the word? She looks like she's really chill, but she's actually not. Like she kind of has this guise of like, like I'm chill, I'm cool. Like it doesn't really matter. We just go with the flow. But then every now and again, you see these little moments where you understand that she actually isn't chill. She just doesn't know how to express like her
Mm,
emotions and stuff. And I find that kind of not only that kind of character, but that kind of person really intriguing. Of like learning, there are these people who have so much going on in their heart and their head that just doesn't fully make its way out. It's just
yeah.
kind of under their breath. But in a TV show, we get to see all of that because we can have those little kind of like
Yeah.
voyeuristic zoom in moments.
Oh,
So yeah,
cool.
that's my like favorite thing about her.
And so where can you watch this? I haven't seen any of it.
Yeah, so you can watch it. You can actually watch it on YouTube for
Oh,
free in these like little kind of 5 minute chunks that come out weekly. But then if you're impatient, you can
yeah.
watch it on Vimeo.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
and on Vimeo, I think you can just pay a little bit and you get the either full seasons or full
Mm,
episodes, and it comes with behind the scenes stuff and extras and all that kind of stuff.
that's awesome.
So yeah.
And so throughout COVID, like, has the crew had, how has the crew dealt with, like, have you been a support system for each other in terms of like mental health on set? And do you think that, because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was like safety on set, both mental health safety and physical safety, especially with, the news lately,
Mhm.
everything that's been going on in the news, Ruby Rose, and then obviously Alec and that unfortunate incident with the
Yes.
cinematographer, which happened this week.
Yeah.
What's your sort of like thoughts on how, as an industry, I suppose in Australia, we're sitting with that kind of thing?
Oh yeah. I don't. I think we're Australia especially kind of have this idea of ourselves that we're very relaxed and we're very chill. But we kind of aren't, especially in the film industry. In Australia, especially, even more than America, time is money, and so the shows that we make that are our most popular shows, like Neighbours and Home and Away and such, are
Mm,
made so fast that you barely get time for like a second take sometimes.
wow.
So there are lots of things like in terms of like working on Flunk, we're usually we're not doing any big stunts. We're not putting any crew or cast in danger. The crew is so professional and so kind of seasoned at it that we move fast, but we never feel like we're falling behind and we need to catch up. It's always just
Mm,
kind of like, no, like the only thing we're racing against is the sun, really.
yeah.
So, but I know that working on other productions, I've worked on other productions where I know for myself I've done things where I've been in positions in scenes where I'm incredibly like physically uncomfortable and physically in pain, but that's like if and people keep coming up to you and they're like, oh, do you want to take a break, do you want to go outside, get like a
Mm,
drink of water? And I'm like, well, no, because if I do that, then everyone takes a break and then I come back, we reset, and then we're here for an extra 3 hours.
yeah.
So, and I want to go, I want to go home.
Yeah.
So like you just push through. I once had a during that shoot, the director, who's actually a really good friend of mine, it's like a zoomed in part of my eyes, and I'm just like crying, and he kind of like looks past the view, the little view thing, and he's like, "Are those real tears?" I was like, "It's like yeah, my neck hurts.
A
Like
little
I'm in a
bit.
lot of pain right
A little
now."
bit leaning into it,
Yeah.
but yes.
Yeah, just I'm just using it like so yeah, it's like definitely on bigger productions where things like stunts and stage fighting and then like fight choreography and such, there's so much that just gets missed. And
Yeah.
I personally am really interested. I'm wanting to in the next, I think I have to work in the industry for another 6 or 7 years before they'll actually start training me. But I want to one day become an intimacy coordinator, which they are, like, their job is to make sure that if there's any kind of touch or like between any actors, whether that be of a sexual nature or of a violent nature, and also things like fight choreography. Like Nigel Poulton is a renowned fight choreographer who was also an IC, and like that's their job, is to come in and to decide, how do we do this not only safely, but how do we empower our actors and our crew, and make sure that communication, because communication is key. Because I mean, looking at the Rust set this week, we know that somebody, like, so many things were miscommunicated and somebody died. Like, it's you know, you need to have those kind of people. You need to pay that extra bit and take that extra bit of time to make sure that everyone is, like, you know, at a level where they can perform to their best ability, and so they're not tired and they're not angry and frustrated. And yeah, I think the industry will move towards that way, especially with COVID and all the regulations, where, like, we already have COVID officers on set pretty much for every production I've worked on since pandemic started. So yeah, I think we're gonna hopefully head that way and have some more regulation around keeping people, you know, happy and healthy.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's got to be a main focus for any industry, I think. But and I think, like, it was a little bit shocking for people to see that something like that is still possible today, because I think we're under this illusion that the industry is so, or from someone that's not super in, like, on set or anything, you know, it seems like a really safe industry, and it seems like you know, people wouldn't, not like the construction industry, for example, where you kind of know that there are dangers, and obviously they do stuff to mitigate that. But I think it was a big shock to see that, you know, a prop gun could have that effect at all. And like, you know, however it happened, you know, I don't think we even know yet. But I think, yeah, it was a big shock to people. And honestly, to me, it was quite a big shock because I'm a cinematographer too. And to see that could happen to someone in a similar position that I could be in, it really hit home. And I was like, I actually never considered that it could ever be a dangerous job. And I think that we've got, like, that just can't happen. Like, there's got to be better. There's got to be better systems in place to make sure that never, ever, ever happens. Like, it shouldn't happen. And yeah, I think it's probably pretty scary for a lot of people that are on set or going into the industry, or like if someone was studying to do that and they saw that happen, it could come as quite a big shock to people, I think.
Especially from the kind of crew aspect as well, because we're so used to, at least in the acting side of things, we're so used to this understanding we have that that we know that it's unhealthy, that actors just do. Like we're taught from day dot that, you know, if somebody says run and jump over, like leap over that chair, you don't question them. You don't say, okay, so can I go and check out the ground or the chair first?
Of course.
You just do it. Consequences be damned. And that kind of mentality, while it can produce good work from actors, it also will make your career a lot shorter, because you'll end up with more injuries. You'll end up with more mental scarring, and then it leaks into, like, you know, your personal life and dealing with certain producers and dealing with kind of people high up in the industry who will take advantage of you. Actors truly don't feel like they have the ability to speak up on set when something seems unsafe. So that's something that, like, I think actors nowadays are trying to foster for themselves and for each other. Because you think about it for actors, but then you don't really consider it for the crew. The fact that crew, even, you know, because the actors are working these 16-hour days or whatever, but so are the crew. The crew are probably working longer because they have to pack up and set up and everything, and get there. Crew always get there before cast do. Cast are just talent, just kind of come on for the middle bit, and then are kind of chucked back in a car and out we go. So yeah, it is incredibly important.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think that like there's got to be a line with, you know, I mean, I know that like, you know, for example, in the medical industry, there was a big stigma around, you know, doing your hours and doing your placement and working 22 hours straight or whatever. But given how important sleep and recovery is and that kind of thing, you know, there's got to be a line as to where is an appropriate amount of time to have someone on set, or like whether that's cast, crew, whoever. Do you think that the industry does a good job with that, or do you think there's a little bit of a ways to go?
I think there's a ways to go. I think most of the productions I've worked in have been very strongly, have had a union influence. I'm with the union and have been since I graduated uni. So pretty much all of them work very strictly to like, you can't work past this time. Sometimes we'll be shooting and we'll be desperately trying to get stuff done because the producer's there like, if you don't get this done by 10 p.m., it's not getting done. We have to come back a different day, which is fantastic. But there are definitely even productions that might be union that push the rules and decide to keep people back. I know that every time I look at an audition or any kind of call where it says that it will be like a 2 hour to 4 hour call, or sometimes they just say like it's going to be 2 hours, no more than that. And I always know that I'm like, no, it's not 2 hours. That's either going to be 4 hours, 6 hours, or we'll be there until 3 a.m. I've been on shoots that have meant to be just. I did a music video sometime last year that was you know, marketed to me by the friend of mine who got me in on it, that it was going to be at most 8 hours, and it was pretty sure it was 13 or 14, where you just kept going because there was only 2 days to shoot. 2 days we had this massive set, and beyond that there was no other option. There were things that they missed that they didn't even get to shoot, and you just like, for some reason there's just no regulation around you need to go home and you need to like, and they do worry about you getting home safely. They make sure that people are carpooling each other and getting Ubers. But yeah, other than that, those hours always extend. And I'm sure you find that as well, even working with 100%. Kind of corporate gigs and stuff. Yeah. Whatever, it's like, not Occam's razor, what's the other one? Murphy's Law. Yeah. Like, whatever is going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong. Like, it will happen. So you may as well just stick it out for the whole day because your camera is going to overheat regardless of the temperature outside.
Of course. Been there. With acting, is it something that truly is like just a combination of luck and who you know and your skill level, or is there a pathway that someone can take to unlock like a guaranteed career?
Oh, it's luck. Yeah. I wish there was a path. I know that you can work really hard, and I think the best thing you can do in your hard work, not only in training yourself and making sure that you're connecting with people, is to promote yourself like unabashedly, which I still haven't worked out. I hate promoting myself. I hate saying like you should cast me, I'm good at this, because there's so much imposter syndrome there. But it is truly, so much of it is just luck. And there are like, the only reason that I work in music videos is because I shot a short film with someone once when he was in uni, and then he just kind of kept talking to me. He could have not liked me, and then I wouldn't be working in music videos. So it is 100% like just opportunities kind of come to you, and you also have to look a certain way. And I don't mean that you have to look good. You have to look in the way that the casting wants you to look. I've missed out on jobs that I've gotten super close to simply because they're like, oh, well, you don't look enough like this person's sibling. Like, we need you to look more like this person, and this other actor looks more like that person than you do in terms of family relations. So
something
you
that
haven't
you
got the
can't
job.
control.
Yeah,
So
I can't do anything about it. I got blue eyes. I can't change that. So, you know.
What does that kind of, like, how does that affect you? Or, like, do you get upset when that happens, or do you kind of just have to let it roll off your back?
Bit of both. I think, like, I used to live by this idea of, like, expect nothing, you'll never be disappointed. And I do still live by that in the sense that anytime I go for a job, I assume I haven't got it. But that I noticed that when I was kind of assuming that, I was not working as hard, because I was like, well, it doesn't matter if I get it or not, because I'm just going to assume I haven't got it. And if I do get it, it's a bonus. So now I'm trying to work more on deciding that I want things and hoping for them. And then when I don't get them, there is that feeling of like real disappointment and that questioning of, like, you know, what could I have done better? But a lot of the time, especially in film, it's never about what you can do better. It is just simply about your look and your energy and things you can't change. So you just have to deal with that disappointment, because also the disappointment means that you care. Like, it means that you actually want to do this and want to be in it. Because if I didn't care ever, then I would be like, oh, maybe I should look at doing a different career path. And that day may come. But right now, I really give a damn. So yeah.
Do you think that is particularly hard for certain, like, marginalized groups? Like, if you fit into, like, a group, whether you're trans or, you know, of a certain ethnicity, like, do you think that affects those sorts of groups harder? And is there anything that we can do to help solve that in a way, like, whether that's in the writing or whatever? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, having, like, the writing especially is the big thing of, like, having healthy representation where you purposely write characters who are diverse in various ways and intersectionally as well. And, like, making it a purposeful decision. And I think if you're not in the industry as an audience, watch them. Like, there's a show on Stan at the moment called Sort of, that I think people should watch, simply because there's representation. It's an authentic story, like, showing executives and production and stuff that the audiences are interested in this, because otherwise, like, I'm trans non-binary, and yet, and I like to tell myself I can get cisgender roles, but I also know that may not happen. Like, that may be an unconscious bias for a casting agent, where they go, oh, this person is good, but also there's like a cisgender woman here who, like, I think I would prefer to go there. Like, even if they don't understand that they're doing that, that can definitely be happening. So we may as well just be writing in roles that are, you know, for trans people and for people of color, and that are also written by diverse people, so that, like, authentic stories can be told. And then it's trying to get the masses to watch them. That's the big thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think one show that does that pretty well is Sex Education.
Oh yeah.
Great show, by the way, if you haven't seen it. Watch it right now. Stop this and watch it right now, immediately. But I think for me, that was quite a... And I think this, like, they do the writing and everything in such, like, a subtle and meaningful way that I think it comes across as just another show for a lot of people, which is kind of the perfect balance. Yes. And I think there is a really important thing with, like, whether it's, you know, encouraging people to become more plant-based, for example. I think that you've got to strike a balance so that you can make sure that you're reaching the masses in the right way. And I think a show like Sex Education does that really well, because anyone can watch it. Like, it doesn't matter. And I think that, you know, that's a really cool way forward. And I think something that people should, like, be talking about more in the industry, like making sure that, you know, when you're on set, you know, you're lighting something in a certain way, like even thinking about like how you light something is important. And, you know, color grading, all that sort of thing, it comes into it too. And we have to be working together as an industry, as a team, to include everyone, because otherwise what the hell are we doing? Like,
yeah, I think the great thing about sex education is like that there's really an emphasis on normalization, and not in the way that normalization has kind of been like warped in like Twitter has kind of warped it to be like normalize this, normalize that, and forgetting what normalize means. But like being trans, one of the top things I want is trans characters to be completely normalized, where sex education introduced a non-binary character, Cal, who was awesome. But being the first one, they had to explain, like they had to give an explanation. I'm non-binary, this is my story arc. They got to talk about safe binding, which like is mind-blowing. I wish I had that when I was younger.
Yeah,
and
that was a good topic too.
It was a great topic.
Yeah.
So that's like the first step, and then the next step is having those characters and those actors, like having trans actors where that's not their full story, is not the fact that they're trans.
Well, that's
like
the most important thing, I think.
Yeah.
Like making it, you know, obviously doing it in a sophisticated way, like
yes,
in a way that is like I was talking to Jess on the previous podcast about this, but you know, what if we could, like, when we're hiring someone, you don't see the resume, and the resume doesn't have the sex or the gender or anything on it, and you just see the person's details, and you're just hiring them for, you know, what they're good at. I think if we could get to that point in society in a lot of different industries, like how good would that be? And I think this is how we do it, is by just like normalizing the conversation, making it not making a big deal out of things, like not making you made a great point about you know, the reason why this character is in here is not because they're trans, it's because they're a cool person and they have a cool story. Like, which
there's a really good one in The Politician, because Theo Germain is in The Politician as a trans person, and it's never mentioned. Like you just accept that this character goes by he, him pronouns, and that's all you need to know. And that's not even spoken about. It's just that everyone refers to him that way. And it's like, and everyone just kind of accepted it. It was phenomenal. It was really, really cool.
Having pronouns on social media and Instagram and like LinkedIn and stuff, like why is that an important thing? And can you explain like why should we be doing that and adapting that and making sure that's like just the norm?
Yeah, I mean, so I use they, them pronouns exclusively. And for me, it's kind of this thing where, especially if cisgender people are starting to put their pronouns, you know, on their bios and kind of just asking people their pronouns, like I'm trying to, for myself, get into the habit of asking people so that I can then tell them mine. But if more people do it, it becomes accepted and it becomes a thing that you don't question. So when I inevitably turn up as a trans person and I'm like, oh, I use they, them pronouns, I don't have to go through that conversation of like, but that's not grammatically correct. And I just think I will struggle with it a lot. And it's like, okay, like I want to get
conversation.
To the yes, yeah.
I want to find it so hard.
I want to get to the point where like it's so normalized. It is so normal to be asking people for their pronouns and to be accepting and respecting them.
Yeah.
I think we could get there, especially in like our generation, especially in places like Melbourne where it is very progressive. I know that there are certain like leeways that I have for myself in terms of family, etc., where my closest family use the correct pronouns. But I also know that like there was a family gathering recently where it was my grandfather's funeral, so I was like live streaming in, and they completely referred to me as female, and I'm like, do you know what? It's fine. Like there are like that's they are all very old for one, but also they don't need to stress themselves out about it at this time. But then I know for my friends and for my immediate family, the more that they are able to talk about it and the more educated they can be, and then can educate the people around them who are not only still confused, but don't have a trans kid. Like my mum has a kid who's trans, and so she is on this fast track of learning things, because I'm sitting here going, hey, you need to like pay attention to this. So she goes out of her way to learn stuff, and then can teach the people around her in, on the sunny coast, who don't have the availability of a real live trans person to talk to.
A real live trans person.
Yeah, in the flesh.
Yeah, no, that's cool though, because, and how has your family and how's your mum been with learning about it and everything? Like, how did that sort of unfold?
She's a legend. Because initially it was like a shock. It was actually something that I only spoke to her about, purely about this, because I thought that I had been, pretty obvious about being not cisgender my whole life. But she just kind of chalked it down to, just an odd kid, which I definitely was. But it was only last year that I kind of went to her and I was like, okay, so I'm going to get top surgery, and I'm like, these are my pronouns, like blah, blah, blah. And initially it was definitely it was a shock. It was a struggle, where she's like, I need time, to think of, you're asking me to change my whole, the way that I think about you and refer to you, which I would also argue is once you move away from your parents, there is pretty much 50% of you that they actually don't know anymore. It's like, you become an almost entirely different person away from them. So for her, it was just about reprogramming that part of me that she had in her head that I no longer was anyway. And she now is she suggested to me a podcast, and she suggests a lot of podcasts to me, and I'm always like, yeah, I'm not going to listen to it, but thanks. But she suggested one to me, and she said, I want you to listen to it because I want to discuss it with you. And I listened to it, and I can't remember what it was now, but it was by a trans person who is non-binary and a bit old, I think 10 years older than me, who was having a discussion about being trans. And I just kind of sat there and I was like, my mum went out of her way to find this and then wanted me to listen to it so we could talk about it and she can learn more. She is probably like 1 in a million. Like in my head, she's like 1 in a million. There's, it is so rare to find a parent who will be so not only accepting but also eager and hungry to learn more, so that she can start referring to me correctly to people around her and
helping
can start
make it easier
people.
For you as well, And so, like you mentioned earlier, that you'd seen a psychologist for the first time the start of the year or last year? Yeah,
it was middle of last year, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, or October, around that.
I think that's super cool. That's something that oh God, we all should be doing it.
Oh yes.
But it's something that I think is quite hard to take that first step and then go in and then actually just talk about it to people and be like, yeah, I see a psychologist. It's like everyone does. Like, come on. What was there something that how did you figure out that you needed to do that, and then how has that helped you through COVID and through other stuff that's been going on? How has that been helpful for you?
Initially, I was kind of forced to do it, because when you apply, so when you start the process to get top surgery, one thing you need a letter of support from a psychologist.
Okay.
And so you get given, I talked to a peer mediator, and they gave me a list of psychologists who would do this. And I found one who initially my first thought was, I'm like, I don't need this. Like I've handled this pandemic well enough. Like, yeah. I'm fine. And I only went because I went with this idea that I would go to my first session, I would talk about stuff, and then she would give me my letter, and I'd be on my way, and I'd never see her again. And I went there, and I had this sense of bravado, sense of like, I know what I'm here for. I know who I am. I'm fine. And she just kind of sat there and was like, she's like, what is going on with this person? And then I left there and kind of realized that I hadn't been honest at all. And so my next session was, I had written down a whole bunch of stuff that I read out where I was like, I wasn't honest with you. And I do need help. I have like 2 types of anxiety. I'm ASD. Like I've got a whole bunch of things that I have been managing by myself, but not actually dealing with. I've just kind of been treating the symptom of them. Every time that I get super anxious, I'm go, okay, well, my mum's told me what I need to do, but what I needed to do was talk to a professional who can give me strategies and can work with me, and I can talk to without any fear of judgment. And I found that was like such a surprising thing that I didn't expect when, after we got through all of the kind of like dysphoria and, gender stuff, I got to kind of sit there and be like, yeah, like I am extremely anxious. I've been anxious for the past 2 years because I've been locked inside and I haven't truly processed that. And can I talk about it with someone who I won't feel like I'm weighing them down emotionally with my baggage, because that's her job. Like I'm paying her to take my baggage and to store it somewhere. So yeah, I think I will probably see, if not this psychologist, I would like to if she's available, but like I will probably see professional psychologists for the rest of my life, because the change of who I was before I started going to see my psychologist to now is like just completely different person. I look back at this person who was just struggling so hard, but completely thought that they were on top of it. To now, to the person who goes, hey, I'm still struggling in ways, but I know I am, and I know I need help, and I know I can have certain things that I never allowed myself to do before, like stimming and like sensory stuff. I used to just force myself into sensory overload episodes, and now I'm like, no, I can just do stuff for it.
Yeah, there's tools that you can access, but how do you access them if you don't know that they're there?
Yeah, exactly right.
And so I think that's a really important message for people, because to be honest, like there's so many people out there that are terrified of the idea of being, mentally ill. And I think like, a lot of people think psychologist equals mentally ill equals whatever. Like, and they put all this pressure on themselves before even considering that they might need it. Or, I think that everyone's got something going on, and to talk about it with a professional is only going to do you the world of good. Unless they're a terrible psychologist.
That's true. But, there are some people you got to kind of sift through, try a few out, and then find the one that gets you.
Well, yeah, and it's the same thing with like a GP. Like not all GPs are good. Like you got to find the right one, and I think it's allowing people to, really prioritize their own mental health and their own physical health and their own career path or passion, or like you're actually allowed to put yourself first. And I think that we've got to stop feeling like I'm doing this thing for myself and that means that I'm being selfish. Like absolutely not. Like if you're the best version of yourself, you can be better for everyone. Like there's this one thing in Buddhism that I learned when I was a kid was if you love yourself, you'll love others too, was the portion of the quote. And I think that's really true. Like, you've got to learn to love and accept yourself through these practices and through mindfulness and through whatever means. And I think that talking about it with each other and saying to your friend, like, hey, I saw my psychologist this week. I'm trying this new method out, I'd like to share it with you in case you want to give it a go yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I found it to be really useful. You know, these aren't conversations that people were having in the past, I don't think,
Oh, no.
a lot.
Goodness me, no.
So, you know, don't talk about that. Like, especially, you know, macho people or whatever. But I think that, like, it's so cool that so many of my friends and people that I meet in my job are now really starting to open up about that and talk about it and say, actually, you know what? It's like, I'm not ashamed of that. Why would I ever be? Like, I'm working on myself. And you're saying, like, it's changed your life from here to here. Like, you're giving yourself that gift by going every time and by challenging it, because it is a challenge. Like, you have to face things that you might not have even considered were wrong with you.
Oh, absolutely. That's like the first few sessions is literally just realizing that that there are so many more things that you were just like, but that's everybody's like that. And your psych's like, no, this is like a medical thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, there's probably a lot of things that in our lives, for whatever reason, we've pushed it down. And, you know, whether we've noticed that we don't quite concentrate really well on something, or, oh, I can't actually read that. Like, when I read it, the letters jump around. You know, these are things that, you know, for me, that's prevalent, but, you know, something that I would, like, never tell anyone about. But I think that, you know, it's recognizing that there is something there and then finding a solution to it, or, like, finding a solution to problems in general is a path that you can only go down if you find the problem.
Yeah, true. Absolutely right.
And I think it's really cool that you're doing that, and I'm glad to see that it's working out for you. And I think, you know, if there are people out there as well, like, go do it for yourself. Like, you know, join the gym, or, like, do whatever you've been putting off, because, you know, life only keeps going until it doesn't, right?
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, there's two more questions I want to ask you, and I think I'm going to ask each of my guests this. One of the questions is blatantly stolen off Willosophy, so shout out. And that is, what do you think happens after you die?
Ooh, I think I actually had this conversation with somebody on Hinge recently. I think I'm a very death positive person. Like, I kind of, that's part of my personality. I, for myself, believe that there's not really anything. Like, I love the idea of reincarnation, and the idea that you kind of just start again, and, like, that it's cool. You could start again as whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I also, I'm very open about the idea. I think people who have certain religious beliefs, for the, like, individually, awesome. Like, if they believe that they are going to heaven, that's exactly where they're going. It's, and, you know, there is the caveat of they can't tell me where I'm going.
Yes.
because I don't know. I don't really. I'm kind of obsessed with the idea of, like, I was even looking into it today, of green burials and eco burials, of just basically decomposing into the earth. So I kind of just think that I'll just become one with the earth. Like, if the idea of the soul as an energy can't be destroyed, it can only be transformed. So I guess I would just kind of become some photosynthesis, or, like, just some energy around the world. The world is full of energy, so not to get all hippy dippy about it, but yeah,
that's amazing. That's a great outlook, and I totally agree with you. Like, energy is a force. Like, it's just different, right? Like, and you can feel it. Like, when someone comes into a room and they have a certain energy, you're like, whoa.
Oh yeah.
Hello.
Oh yeah. They haven't done anything yet. It's tangible.
Yeah, and I think some people are better at detecting energy than other people as well. Like, you know, gut feelings and things as well. There's something going on there that gut feelings, especially, or deja vu, like.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Isn't that one, like,
unexplainable things?
Gosh. Like, it's just like there's so much what we don't know, and I think it's really cool that we don't know everything.
Yeah.
I most certainly don't want to know everything explicitly. Like, that'd probably be a bit sad, wouldn't it? Probably wouldn't be the answer that I wanted as well, I'm sure.
And once you learn anything, there's nothing more to learn. So,
and you can't learn everything, which is the good thing out of that, is that it's literally impossible to learn everything. And I think that's why I like not being AI.
Yeah, true.
Because like, what if we do the whole Elon Musk Neuralink thing and we become computers and then we actually do know everything? What happens then? Like, oops. Where does our energy go? And the final question would be, and I don't know how this question is going to come across because I haven't asked it to anyone before, but I like there's this idea of like manifesting things. So like, if you work really hard in a certain direction and then you make things happen for yourself. I want to know what your thoughts are on manifestation, and is that a thing for you?
I think it's a thing that actually, I think it works, but not in the way that it kind of advertises itself to work. I don't think that manifestation is actually like some kind of cosmic, like kind of stellar thing that happens. I think it is simply, you just make different choices unconsciously. In terms of the acting industry, we talk a lot about manifestation, about like kind of saying to you, like manifesting, you're gonna get this role or your project is gonna be a success. Mm-hmm. And I think by having those thoughts, what you're unconsciously doing is putting more love and passion into what it is you're doing and working harder and putting yourself out there and putting yourself forward, talking to people about it more, even if that starts with like, yeah, I've been manifesting that I'm gonna like get this audition that I really want, and you're working harder at it and you're putting yourself out there and people go, oh, you're an actor, I'll keep that in mind, I'll cast you in something or something like that. So I think it does work, but is I don't see it as mystical as it kind of feels like when we talk about it. I do think there's a really logical, tangible evidence of it.
That's cool. Love that answer. Well, I mean, final thing to do is like shout out where people can find you and slide DMs.
Yep. So you can find me on Instagram at let me just check what it is because I know my name's different from my. Yep, so it'll be Kelsie AJS. That'll be KELSIE AJS on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, but I do not use it, but feel free to follow me. And yeah, they're really the only places that I frequent. Or you can hit up my agent at Storm Actors if you want to hire me, which would be great.
Do it, guys. I'll let you go, but thank you so much. This has been amazing. I loved talking to you, and I hope that you're, you get used to the world again.
Yeah, thank you. I shall. I'm gonna get thrown into it anyway. So.
See you later.
Toodles. Yeah.
Today's podcast was brought to you by The Content Lab. You can follow us on Instagram at _The Content Lab for more episodes and updates. That's _TheContentlab for more episodes and updates. See you next week and take care.